in Pascagoula,
Yeah.
which you drove by.
Yeah, I've been there before.
I have neighbors who live here in Mobile now who had beachfront homes that were completely washed away in Pascagoula. So they were 50 miles from Waveland.
Wow.
Still lost their home. So it is pretty amazing. Here in this area, of course, we had Ivan 11 months before Katrina.
I remember that.
And Ivan was to the east of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the winds came from the northeast, so they tore the other side of the roof off.
Mm-hmm.
And then 11 months later, they tore this side of the roof off. So we were very unique in catching both of them at about the same intensity, about 80 or 90 mile an hour winds at this building for the two hurricanes.
Wow.
But lucky for us, what we learned in Ivan about how to turn around and do disaster relief, we could apply 11 months later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Too often, the organizations on the coast, after a storm, they do a lessons learned and they start having monthly meetings and they organize for the next time, and then each month fewer people show up, and 8 years later, when the next storm hits, nobody's there anymore, and it's all new people, and you start all over again.
No institutionalized memory.
So the two so close together really, for our ability to respond, were actually pretty effective. And we had staff here who knew exactly what they needed to get done, and that's why within 48 hours of the storm passing, we were operating and distributing food into Mississippi, and it went on for a long time.
Got it. So you're just Alabama and Mississippi?
Our service area, we're part of the Foodbank network, Feeding America.
Okay, I'm familiar with Feeding America, just generally speaking.
Yeah, and there are 203 of us. In Seattle, it's Linda Nicorette, I think is how she's.
I've heard her name before. In fact, I've seen her at one where we used to go set up a table, you hang out.
She has that food bank. We're each assigned a service area, so that every county in the United States has a food bank assigned to it.
Every county, wow.
Every county, all over the United States is assigned to one of the 204 of us.
Got it.
We have from the Louisiana state line to Panama City, Florida.
Got it.
And then inland about 100 miles.
Got it.
So Dennis and Ivan, and farther back here, Hurricane George, which was over in Florida, that was our responsibility, and of course Katrina was ours because we handle the coastline of Mississippi.
So what was the uptick in just families needing to be served, and from Hurricane Katrina, and then how has what's been the uptick now that a lot of people are out of work because they can't go out and fish?
The challenge, the difference between a Katrina and an oil spill is, in a Katrina situation, you know exactly who needs help because there's a building destroyed, the power's not on, the street lights are hanging down, it's easy to spot. In an oil spill, it isn't that easy. An oil beach means different things to different people.
Absolutely.
And probably the biggest sector that as a result of the oil spill the media has not covered is the waitress, the lady who cleans condos for a living, the small businessman with a beach thing, because they are at the beach but they don't live there. They can't afford to live there. So the lady who normally in a busy summer, I don't know how many rooms a cleaning lady cleans, but maybe it's 20 a day, suddenly there's only 4 to clean. So she only gets 16 hours a week during the summer instead of 40. She doesn't live at the beach. She lives 30 or 40 miles inland where she can afford to live.
Now she's got to pay the gas.
And she's driving to work for almost as much as she makes. And the same thing with the waitress. The tips are down because she's still got to be there all day to man her station, but she's not getting the tips because people aren't there. So it's a hard to find, because then you got to find out where do they live. So where the food bank has been doing distributions in the fishing villages, it's very clear cut. When you look at Biola Battery and say, 70% of the population of the city work in fishing, and the other 30 support them,
Yeah.
then they're in bad shape, easy to go to.
Yeah.
But where do all the wait staff and hotel cleaning staff, where do they live?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Don't know.
spread out.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge with the BP disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had conversations with BP persons to try and articulate that, because they want to go, no, where are you gonna distribute the food if we help fund it? And I have to say, well, I'm not sure yet.
It's like, where are the people are?
The demographics, it's clear that people are disadvantaged,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not clear where they're located.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to see the damaged house.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest single challenge this time. The other thing that is a challenge, I think that's going to be a challenge, is how do you gauge the longevity for the different sectors?
Yeah.
It's easy to come in and say, we're going to give everybody who can prove they were disadvantaged 6 months' salary.
Yeah.
That's great for those who could prove it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everybody can prove it.
Mm-hmm.
And it remains to be seen whether the service industry people can, because a cleaning lady doesn't count the number of rooms every day, and so how does she prove it? And then the other challenge, I think, is the question of when does the money run out?
Yeah.
And I have a concern that governments are going to take huge volumes of money because they're already asking for it. And
when you say government, as in like hiring more administrative staff to manage the government money, that manage the programs.
right, exactly. You know, I work in mental health, and I need to add 10 mental health workers, so therefore I need 3 more supervisors,
Mm-hmm.
and then need a supervisor,
Yeah.
and then I need 2 more accountants to manage the control of the money. And
I'm there right now. You
Yeah.
know, I'm there right now. I'm spending $12.50 to make $10. You know, on some of our weatherization work because I've got to hire this accountant. You know,
Yeah.
to make sure that everything's in a row.
And that's 25%. I would
Big
tell you
time,
when
yeah.
the government gets involved, it's 100%
Mhm.
markup.
Mm-hmm.
They'll double it.
Yep.
I mean, look at everything we do in appropriations in the government, and it just soars in price.
Yeah.
I was told last weekend that we have been trying to work with BP to get, because they want to provide us some funding to help with food distribution.
Got it.
It was held up because the state of Alabama mental health department put in a request to BP for $100 million to do mental health support in Mobile and Baldwin County.
Well, people need it, but wow.
And you look at $100 million, and it was basically $20 million a year for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a lot of mental health counseling.
Uh-huh.
And for a population who probably could use that money to pay the rent a lot more than they could use it to go and say, I need help with my rent, and therefore I'm stressed.
Pay the rent.
Yeah. But that huge request of funding choked the BP funding stream and caused them to step back and have to figure it out. Now, I saw in the paper they ended up getting $12 million.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a more reasonable amount.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take everybody out there who is asking for huge sums of money to do government things, you have to wonder how much of it will actually help the individual citizen in the end. You know, $12 million to talk to the person whose stress is based on lack of a job isn't going to really help them get a job.
No, no.
So you don't hear job training.
Yeah.
You don't hear relief from taxes, maybe.
Mm-hmm. We were just talking about that, this morning. It was like, hey, man, people could use a tax holiday.
Right.
Help some small business people out. We were just talking to Frank Campo. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, if they could just give me, relief from my 35% taxes, that would help out tremendously.
Exactly.
And so, these are the kind of ideas that we're trying to get from a diverse
Yeah.
group of people who are all saying the same thing. Everybody's saying, what happens when their money runs out? What happens? Well, why are we creating more government jobs and not putting the money into the hands of small business folks who know what to do with it? Or putting the money into the hands of people who, like you said, they're stressed out because they don't have a job. It's not because they've got some psychoses that just came to the surface.
What are you stressed with? I'm stressed because I don't have a job. And it is. There's another challenge that I faced, that because I've been asked, by Feeding America, do you need additional food support? And I have to look at it and say,